Today, let's talk about the Civic Center. And what does civic mean anyway?
Welcome to Front and Center, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on government operations, offering you an exclusive glimpse into the inner workings of the city of Statesville.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ron Smith. I'm here with Richard Griggs and Kaylee Bailey this morning, and we are going to talk about the Civic Center. And Civic Center is been around since 1999.
New Year's of '99.
Yes, so one of probably our largest facility, or if not the largest, it's probably one of the largest, located downtown. And so we're just going to kind of go through with, what's that facility do, what kind of events we have. Somewhere in here, Kaylee is going to define civic for us. And she'll slide that in somewhere, I'm sure. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off. So let's just start with the basics. Without having to regurgitate the true mission of the Civic Center, what's the intent? Why do we have a Civic Center?
Sure. I think the primary purpose of the Civic Center is to provide versatile meeting space for our local community to host a variety of events, but also to attract people from outside of our community so that we can bring them into downtown Statesville and showcase all the things that make Statesville great. So, it's a constant balance to try to figure out how we can, one, be appealing and accessible to the citizens of Statesville while also trying to be attractive to people from outside our area.
How's the location downtown, as opposed to, say, it being out, on the interstate, like the convention center in Hickory?
Sure.
What's the difference there, and how do we attract different people?
I think the location to downtown is paramount. I think that's one of the things that makes the Civic Center really special, is that it's in the heart of our vibrant downtown. So, if you're having an event there, there's also a lot of amenities outside of that facility that your group can take advantage of. Restaurants, shops, all that kind of, the walkable downtown of Statesville is beautiful. And I think it's just an added benefit to the location.
When we have, we've attended conferences there as well, and during, break times throughout the day, we can walk to the gondolier and get ice cream on our break, or, if lunch isn't catered, we can go to a restaurant and have lunch, or walk around to the different shops. So the central location to downtown is very nice.
Pop over and check out historic City Hall, and,
all the lobby at least. Knock on the city manager's office.
That's right. Yeah.
So who typically uses the facility? Who's it open to? Who uses it?
So anybody can use it. We have all sorts of events, from business meetings and conferences to wedding events, wedding receptions, to trade shows. Next month we have our coin show coming up. So really a wide variety of events. We're really capable of hosting anything, really. That's what's really nice about the space there, and the ability to, have breakout rooms for conferences, but also cater to, smaller local community groups or weddings. And
so, can you elaborate a little bit more on, who's using it? Who uses it the most? I mean, is it for weddings or parties, or?
I think it's a good mix. It's a balance of, we do on the weekends typically see a lot of wedding events, but during the week we have a lot of different meetings, business trainings, and things like that. So it's really a balance. I wouldn't say we have any more events than the other throughout the year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think for every open to the community expo type event, the quilting and needlepoint extravaganza or the coin show or anything like that, we have those weddings, we have the regional conferences, we've had anonymous conferences there before, and then things like that. So I wouldn't say that there's any particular group that seems to use it more than the other, which I think is indicative of the success of that facility, is that we are reaching a broad spectrum of different users.
So I'm going to reach a little bit here, and one of the challenges with running a relatively small civic center is that you're trying to make the rates fair for locals as well as trying to draw in others. and I wouldn't say that the Civic Center pays for itself. So what are the things that you're trying to do to help to kind of get it to the point where we're bringing in bigger shows and bigger events to kind of help us mitigate not losses but help to augment the funding of the facility by the nonprofits?
So we've made a number of changes here recently. And to your point, we are trying to make sure that the facility is attractive to some of these larger scale regional events, multi-day events, because that's a win for the entire community outside of just the Civic Center. That puts people in our hotels, that puts people in restaurants and all the the other facilities in the area. So we do want to attract those, but we do want to make sure that the Civic Center is accessible to the local community and that it is a place where you feel like you can afford to and are welcome to have your retirement party or your wedding or your baby shower. And so we have made a number of changes recently. We do offer different rates depending on whether or not it's a weekend event versus a Sunday through Wednesday event. There are less expensive rates for that first half of the week. We also have sort of changed the structure for the rentable time frame. So whereas before, maybe you'd rent your rental coverage from 8 a.m. to midnight, we have shortened that window to try to increase efficiencies a little bit so that staff, we can schedule our staff a little bit more effectively and just make sure that we have ample time to break down space and set up space and overall try to sort of lessen that gap between the operating costs and the revenue generated while still putting a lot of emphasis on the affordability of the space.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, or I just sort of talked in circles there?
You did. So I guess 25 years ago, when the facility opened, it had a big party on December 31st, 1999. Extremely bold. You guys were probably in high school or younger.
I was 20.
So to me, that's probably the most notable event that's taken place. But what are some of the others that have taken place in recent years that you can?
So the Statesville Chamber of Commerce has had their annual gala there. We've also had the North Carolina Main Street Conference. We have, like some of our trade shows that are there annually: quilt show, coin show, gun show. Those are probably some of the bigger ones that we host there throughout the year. Rescue Ranch has their annual fundraiser there.
Yeah, they definitely have, yeah. The Main Street Conference, that's as far as I know, that's probably the largest event that's been held there. I mean, I think that was attendance in the 700 plus range, that's pretty well maxing things out. But back to your previous question, the proximity to downtown is really, and the ability to use alternative spaces is really what makes events like that work. Our ability to operate both inside and outside of that facility.
Yeah, the Main Street Conference, that was impressive. It was obviously never have seen it that facility that full, and just the number of people that were walking around downtown was, it was just impressive.
Yeah.
I don't know what the economic numbers are. I don't remember what they are for that week. But I've not seen that many people downtown probably ever.
Well,
other than outside of a festival or something.
Sure, and it was a big win for the Civic Center and downtown Statesville, but it was pretty telling. The idea of community. That really sort of exemplified the idea of community, because there were a lot of moving parts that had to come together to make that Main Street Conference work. I'm sure you remember how much different city departments had to come together and kind of prep downtown. You're working with Downtown Statesville Development, working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I mean, it was very much a labor of love for everybody involved, which was really the only way that I think we pulled it off, which was pretty cool.
A labor of love. I like that.
That's right.
So we've we've kind of set some goals for attracting more of these types of events, attracting, doing more programming, things of that nature. Could you kind of talk through some of that, or? I mean, they have not been super solidified or anything,
Sure.
but that's something that we're trying to achieve.
Sure. So just to touch base on what we were talking about a second ago, another one of our operational changes that we've done is to reduce the amount of time that people can actually book in advance. So we've trimmed that down to 12 months. Previously, it was 18. What that helps us do is actually look for these bigger conferences that need to book 2 and 3 years out. It opens up some availability for us. If we were to, find a conference that wanted to take place, a year from now or 18 months from now, we have more availability to do so. So the Civic Center is actually booked every weekend almost for the next 12 months. Which I think is also telling of the usage of the facility in itself. That it's constantly busy over there. Really, our main ability is during the week time or the weekdays, which a lot of conferences do take place on the week too. So, opening up availability, like I said, would help us attract some of those bigger multi-day conferences.
Yeah, so I mean, to that point, making the facility more available, but then also, we are trying to be more proactive. We've got a pretty good partnership with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and so we're trying to lean into that, and then them, using their assistance to help market the facility. And we have plans to attend some trade shows outside of the area, so that we can actively market the Civic Center and try to see if we can't. What kind of events we can attract, and also it helps us look in the mirror and see what kind of changes and modifications we can make to the facility to make us more attractive for those kind of events.
And one of the things that we're hoping, and it's gone incredibly slow, is that when the Vance Hotel opens back up, that there's some potential breakout space there and rooms. So having that as an ability to try and recruit some of these bigger events, if you had 60 to 80 rooms there, potentially, that would go a long way.
I think that'd be tremendous.
The breakout space would be big for us. A couple of months ago, we had a big Rotary event, and their need was to have breakout spaces kind of multiple times during the day. And we're a little limited on how we can arrange that. It just takes more staff time. It takes us, a certain amount of time to actually open the walls and put them back together. The additional breakout space would actually be nice also for attracting other conferences.
Well, that's a good segue into my next question. So talk about the layout and how you can configure the rooms and kind of what there is to offer.
Sure. So one, we have you could rent the entire building, which would include the Great Hall, as well as our media room, and then we have 2 smaller rooms as well. You can only rent the Great Hall, which is 5 rooms, or you can put the walls up, make it 5 rooms, or open it up and have one, open floor plan. So our media room is, upgraded to kind of state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment now, which is really nice to hold business meetings and things like that. But really, the size of the rooms are all a little bit different. You can configure them in different ways. Like I said, do multiple rooms and have a wall up, or have an open floor plan.
Yeah,
So.
And the hallway. People rent the facility. People rent the entire facility. They'll also, a lot of those, like the quilting and needlepoint extravaganza.
Is it truly an extravaganza?
It really is.
I see
Richard's favorite
from
event.
my window in my office, I see quilters.
It is next level, man.
Yeah.
It is next level. Coincidentally, also one of the favorite podcasts that I did with Discover Statesville was with the 2 ladies that put on the quilting and needlepoint extravaganza.
I remember that one, yeah.
And so I go every year. I'm not a quilter yet. But it's cool people. But they take over the entire facility, and they have vendors set up in the hallways. It's really sort of a sight to behold. The way that some of these trade shows and stuff will lean into using every space that is potentially available. And so we can kind of make most things work, and we can be pretty creative about how the space is usable, which gives us a bunch of options and the ability, I think, probably most importantly, to be able to host multiple different types of events at one time.
You don't have to see the sign to know when the quilters are in town.
That's right.
Parking's at a premium,
Yep.
and there's a certain type of person walking around town. So I'm not going to stereotype anybody.
That's right.
But so how does the staff support the folks that are using the facility?
So when someone comes in to inquire about a rental or to book that rental, our staff works with them on a layout. We kind of know how many tables and chairs can fit in a room, along with staging and things like that. So we can work with them on the layout. We set up the tables and chairs for them, also break it down, taking the trash out. So kind of from start to finish, we are very involved with whoever is renting for their event.
And I think to that point as well, one of the things that we want to, the Civic Center moving under the umbrella of the Recreation and Parks Department in the last, 6 months to a year, there's been some transition with the city's recent change with our relationship in this quasi model with Downtown Statesville Development Corporation, our relationship with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. From a service standpoint, we want to try to lean in more to being able to provide that next level of customer service. So the Civic Center staff is primarily focused on the Civic Center and, hey, how can we meet your needs in this space? We can connect you with decorators, we can talk you through layouts and options like that. But to take it a step further, now we'll be better equipped to say, hey, well, okay, you're going to have this. We can connect you with the CVB, who can maybe help you out with hotel arrangements, or we can connect you with Downtown Statesville Development, who can talk you through other spaces if you want to go, have small group meals out and different things like that. I think we can be sort of a conduit to providing a better overall experience in Statesville outside of just the walls of the Civic Center.
Yeah, I think that treating parks, recreation, civic center, downtown, as economic development on some level, or at least as an aspect of economic development, has been a huge, kind of a paradigm shift for the city. And I'm looking forward to seeing how all of this works out. It's so far we've had some bumps in the road, but those were kind of unforeseen. But in general, I think that it's going to be a success, and there's I think all of the departments or divisions are going to benefit by that consolidation.
Yeah.
We all work together in some capacity, and the goal from the recreation side is to actually utilize the Civic Center as well for programming and events. So that partnership communication there, as well as with DSDC. Like if we're hosting a large conference downtown, it is important for downtown businesses to know that we are hosting events like that at the Civic Center, because they may, not be expecting as much business if we don't let them know. So I think communication is really key between all of us, but we'll also be able to work together just in different capacities as well.
Okay. Kaylee, you alluded to this with the media room upgrades, but we've recently invested, or we have invested, and we are investing more in, improving the facility. Can y'all talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've had several improvements to the interior design of the facility. We've laid new carpet, we've redone the curtains, the lighting. The bathrooms have had new countertops and fixtures installed. We are in the process of purchasing new chairs, looking at updating our audio visual for the entire facility itself, and then, yes, as well as the media rooms had a complete overhaul too.
We can't change that 1990s tealish green in the men's room. We can't. I don't think.
Hey, if it ain't broke, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But no,
I feel like the 90s are coming back.
Give it another 10 years, maybe.
It's been pretty cool to watch here just in the last year. The media room was sort of the first step, and it looks amazing if you haven't been in the Civic Center, had a chance to look at the media room. It looks great in there, and it is pretty state of the art. I mean, I'd be surprised if most local businesses and stuff had the technology available that we have at the Civic Center now, and that's sort of why we did that, was to create a space that you want to have a board meeting or any number of things. We can provide this level of technology for Zoom meetings, or even you can record, you can stream meetings that I think a lot of facilities don't have. But then I'm most excited about the future and kind of the technology stuff that Kelly was talking about, installing mounted projectors and drop-down screens and all these things that I think will sort of take us into 2025.
Okay.
2026.
So, yeah. Previously, We'll go further than that. The media room was kind of an oxymoron in a way. Before we upgraded it, it was pretty sad.
Yeah.
But now I'm extremely proud of it, and I mean it's probably, we could throw it up against anything in town for sure.
Sure.
So speaking of where we're going, I mean, what do you see for the Civic Center? Maybe not being a Civic Center in 5 to 10 years. I'll give you a little hint there.
Well, I think we don't want to lose sight of sort of our purpose, which is to provide space for the local community to utilize, but also attracting these larger scale regional events that provide a big economic boon for our community. So we want to try to strike that balance. We do hear that on the side of being more attractive to those large scale regional events, that sometimes the Civic Center piece it's sort of they make an assumption as to what type of facility it is, whereas maybe
puts a limit on it.
Yeah, maybe if we change the name to the Statesville Event Center or something, we may make ourselves at least subconsciously more attractive to some of these organizers and the type of space that we're offering. So those things are all sort of being discussed. But then beyond that, I think we're looking at alternative space outside of the walls of the Civic Center that maybe we can create partnerships with to utilize so that we have additional breakout space that make us more attractive to those larger scale events. We also have hopes of doing a lot of outdoor improvements to the space. And maybe creating some garden space and some space that would be, there's a lot of proms and events like that there, weddings. And so creating a space where it can sort of be a one-stop shop. You could take wedding photos outside and, do all those kind of things.
Yeah.
We got big plans.
Well, it's, the lawn, or I'd call it the lawn. I mean, it's got a beautiful backyard.
It does.
And I know that we've talked in the past about, let's utilize that somehow. Unfortunately, we lost the huge tree up front. But I mean, it's still beautiful, and there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, and it's sort of a blank canvas out there, I think, with what you can do out there, and then we talked about other ideas about trying to create outdoor event space, and time will tell on some of that and what's feasible and what's not.
Okay. So two things, and I'll put these two questions together. So if somebody's never been in there, is there something that you want to say about that you'd want them to know? And then how do you get in touch with somebody to use the facility?
First, I would say to come check it out. Really, the possibilities are endless there. So to be able to come look at the space, talk to our staff, see what amenities that we have that we could, contribute to your event, or as Richard said, give you some pointers on who to contact if other needs were necessary. So come see us. You can also visit our website and kind of see all of our rates and amenities, floor plans, things like that. You can also call our staff or stop by, contact them, and they can show you the ropes.
Okay.
We can do just about anything there.
No.
Yeah,
Endless
just about anything.
possibilities.
That's right. That's bold. That's bold.
And and I think Kelly mentioned this earlier. Back to sort of your previous question about things to expect. We do hope to get into more internal programming at the Civic Center. That's something we haven't ever done a whole lot of, but we do want to try to figure out how to better utilize that space outside of those regional conferences and the facility bookings, to be able to host concerts and all those kind of things that maybe the community would be looking for that we don't currently offer as much of here, and or on a larger scale. And I think it also gives us a big opportunity to partner with other local organizations to help to provide space that may not be accessible currently.
Okay. All right. Well, anything that I have not asked that y'all would like to add?
I don't think so.
Oh, I think I'm good. We appreciate the opportunity.
What's your definition of civic?
We'll save that for another.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I tagged you with that one.
Yeah, see, don't pass the buck.
I think, but in this conversation, you've hit it pretty well. So, I want to thank y'all for doing this, and I hope April Nesbitt, I've passed her test as far as the host today, and I want to thank Ryder Smith for coming in and going to provide some critical comments
That's right. I
for
look
me
forward to
after,
I look forward to the feedback.
podcast.
Tune in to the next episode as we share our dedication to transparency, public service, and governance, shining a spotlight on our commitment to keeping you well informed about all things City of Statesville.